So trimming a platter. I'm gonna grab some clay. Let's grab some waste clay from the reclaim. So just to revisit, platters take a long time to dry, right? And if I can lift up one side without it really moving, that's a plus. And because platters are so wide, when I trim them, I want to make sure that they're fairly stiff, because if I push down here, it'll push down in the center, and then I'll have a plate that has a hump right here. So I want to make sure that things are fairly uniform. And another thing about how plates dry so slowly, because they're close to the surface of things, they're not up in where air is circulating. I left this uncovered accidentally one night, and it was still leather hard when I got here the next day, which is good, because I would have hated for it to be completely dried out. And it's easy to find center with plates because they're so wide, right? Sometimes the narrower of the work is harder to find, right? So this is fairly easy to look and see where it is on the wheel head and adjust. Right? So I have a little bit of a wobble there, but that's okay. I'm gonna make my coils. So 2 on each side. And the tool that I primarily use to trim my platters is this on the side here, because you get a really nice edge. So I'll bring this in, and then I'll trim the inside. So like I show everybody in beginning ceramics, you can make a bullseye just to see where things are at. Especially with trimming a plate, right? We have such a wide surface that having these lines really help bring things in, right? So I'll start on the side and bring it and just start trimming things off. A little bit better angle on the video. And I want to take that transition from the rim to the foot so it's nice and even. So I'll kind of smooth out the angle a little bit. I start with a little sharper angle, and then I'll work more to flat so this rounds everything out here. So just adding pressure. And this platter is a little bit on the dry side for me. I usually will trim it just a little bit softer. If you noticed, the plate moved and shifted a little bit when I was trimming before. So I just adjusted it and reconnected my coils just to make sure that it holds in place. So nothing to be too afraid of. So just take your time. And what I really like about this tool is there's this little edge here. And it'll make a nice round transition to the foot. It's pretty subtle. Like really subtle. But it'll have this little curve here that I really like. It gives it a little bit of a lift. And then when I have that curve, I'll go back down and smooth that out to the rim, right? So I have these lines that show up from the trimming, which just shows the maker's mark, right? So now that I have my outside established, I'm going to trim from the inside out. And one stylized trim mark is the center button. So a lot of old Chinese pottery and platters have this center button here, right? It's going to be the same height as the foot. So if my bottom sags a little bit, this will support it, right? So this will touch the kiln shelf. So I'll leave this little button. Then I'll work my way out, right? So I'll start at the center, trim my first depth, and then meet that depth every little step. And it's just a quick, easy way to understand how to trim, right? It cleans things up really well. And then when you get the hang of it, you can start at the center and then just slowly work your way out to even everything off. So if you have a thick bottom on your plate, that works really well. Because it won't sag. And you can trim off a little bit, right? So one of the last things I'll do is I'll take a look at my foot and see if it is in like a correct proportion to everything. Like if I have a wide foot, does it look right? Do I need to trim it off a little bit? And I think I'll just take this in just a hair. Do one last trim. And I have a little bit of a sharp edge that I kind of want to smooth out a little bit. So how I do that is, I'll grab some water with my sponge and just run it on that foot. And I'll pinch the sides as I do that, and it'll round out those edges just so they're not so sharp. Like this button here, just adding a little bit of water from that damp sponge and running my fingertip on it will really smooth things out nicely. Right? The last step, because my plate is really kind of stiff. It's on the really stiff side of leather hard. I'll add a little bit of water, and I can press my 3D printed stamp in there and push it in that button, and hopefully get a nice mark, right? So something like that. It's almost a little too stiff to press in. Right. So any questions about trimming plates? Right. It's, they're really wide. You'll trim a lot off, right? I have filled my whole splash pan with trimmings just off of one plate. So, with that transition, it evens things out really nicely. And, my foot is about halfway in. So this is pretty narrow for the plate that I threw. But have some fun with it, right? If people want to come up and take a look at it, please do, right? This is probably headed for the wood fire, right? Because I can make some nice marks with wadding and things like that on the bottom, especially with that button, right? So, yeah.
So the foot should be about halfway.
Halfway to 2/3, right? They still have that flare up a little bit. So if it gets hot, it'll catch itself, right? If it's flat, it'll sag out a little bit. Right? So don't make things too flat. The temperature will do its heat work, and yeah. Questions about plates? Cool. Well, it's Thursday, end of the week, so we'll get to work. I'll check in with you guys, and just like every class that I've been recording these, I'll put them up on the talent.